Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here. Monsters Review is also here. Shadow Streak is the edgiest hedgehog recast here to make your day. Bum, bum, ba-dum.
I hope this blends well with the intro music.
That was incredible.
I think my voice crack sold it.
Yeah.
When you do a bit like this, you have to have 100% confidence, and I kind of lost that.
Yeah.
Maybe on the second word.
That was fine, man.
It's
I'll
the
give
thought
you a
that
pass.
counts. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't have to introduce either of you. The audience should know who both of you are at this point. If you don't know who Monsters is at this point, Monsters, welcome to the program.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for welcoming me.
Well, to be fair, you said like 6 words total last.
No, yeah, I was
You were a
really
little
tired.
sick.
I mean, I'm tired right now also, but I'm much more lively. I've got a lot more caffeine in my system.
Okay. And Shadow,
That's
how have you been?
I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome. All right. So, yeah. Anything to talk about, guys?
I'm feeling pretty spooky.
Mr. Streak, how has your week been?
It's been pretty good. Been getting into the Halloween spirit, even though it'll be over by the time this is out. But yeah, it's been going pretty well.
Nice. Monsters, anything else? Just spooky?
No, yeah, just spooky. But I'm more curious in how you're doing.
Thank you, Monsters. How
I know.
considerate of you. So this week, I've got like a lot to talk about. All right, let's get ready for that 3-hour recast.
Ooh.
No, I got a haircut this week, guys. Get ready for an exciting haircut story. My haircutter lady actually cut me.
That's a lawsuit
Whoa.
waiting to happen. No.
So, okay, so here's the thing. So, I'm not good at articulating what I want with my haircut. I know I'm bad at this. And no matter how much I try, people are like, "Oh, just bring a picture of you and show that to them." But I'm like, I don't know. That's just weird to me. Maybe that's a good idea, but I haven't done it yet. But no, I went there and I was like, I want it shorter than it is, just because like I like my hair kind of like decently long in the front, but it gets kind of mangly in the back, and it like covers my ears, and I get these like gross sideburns if I don't get it cut. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have got it cut. But anyway, I was like, just shorter, but not like too short. And she's like, oh, okay, you want the buzzer thing? And I was like, sure, I guess. And she's like, what number you want? 2, 4, 8? What? And I was like, 2. And I thought she was just gonna buzz like the back of my head, like around my ears too. But no, the first thing she does is just right in the side of my head. So I have very little hair right now, and I'm not super happy about it. But the thing was, so it's like it's super faded on the sides. Like you can see my skull, you can see my moles, which is also not very attractive. But she nicked one of my moles, and during the haircut, I didn't feel it. But as I was driving home, I went to itch my head, and I felt dried blood.
Oh.
This is very spoopy for Halloween. But no, I felt dried blood, and then I scratched again, and I felt wet blood. And how could she not have seen that?
Maybe she just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know, man. That was sketch. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed my haircut story. Otherwise, this week Monsters and I hammered out the rest of the year in recasts.
Yeah.
So we've got the schedule down. We've got the guests down for the next month, pretty much, as long as we're not having a guest next week, which we probably are not.
Yeah. But you guys have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah. We've got some really crazy stuff signed up, some really good people on for November. And then December, we've got just all holiday episodes all the time. Should be really cool. And then lastly, I put out a video the night we're recording this past week. This is the first non-recast video since the SpongeBob season 10 one. So it's like a little bit back from a break. And I almost talked about the show on the recast, but I'm like, you know what? Let me just do a video on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. I can do that. And then I did that. And but yeah, I want to do a thing where if you guys have any rebuttals or anything you want to say or like want me to elaborate on or anything like that, just keep posting comments over on that video, the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated video. And next week on the recast, during the like what we've been watching last week segment, I'll reply to some of those. You know, I'll elaborate some more, or I'll debate, or whatever. I don't know. I thought that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Also, the day this is going up, it's my birthday.
Wow. Happy birthday, Pie. Listen, you were thoughtful about when it was my birthday, so
Oh. Oh, dude, you didn't have to do that.
I had to.
And you got Luigi too. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You got me Nintendo eShop card as well. Thank you, friend.
No problem. Thanks for being a great co-host.
You know what I'm gonna put that towards?
How?
Well, one of the the recast. One of the Jackbox packs.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Those
a
are
good
always
idea.
fun.
Not the one that Shadow's supposed to get, but all right. Enough.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Enough inside baseball stuff here going on. We've got a good show for you guys this week. Our usual stuff we talked about. We've got our stuff we watched in the past week. We've got some interesting news. One guy's been talking a lot on Twitter, and we've got a pretty good question, and we got Powerpuff Girls to compare. So that's always a good time.
We'll be roughing it up.
I see what you did there.
Hey, I can do better puns than they can.
Pull you off screen, like the big hook. All right. All right. So, Shadow, what have you watched in the past week?
Oh, what have I watched in the past week? Let me think. I don't know how familiar you are with the Marvel Netflix series, but I've fallen behind on a few of those. So I started watching Luke Cage season 2. I've heard that it's better than season 1. I've only seen the first episode and like part of the second, so I'm just getting into it. But I'm a pretty big fan of that series, and with Daredevil have just come out, I want to catch up on that. So that's kind of what all my time's probably going to be going to in the next couple of weeks.
How far are you in season 2?
Yeah, I'm like 10 or 15 minutes into the second episode. I would have finished it, but I got pulled away from something. So I only just started it.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I wouldn't say pretty big into, but I had a period where I kind of marathoned all that stuff up to Jessica Jones season 2 was about to come out. So I saw everything before that, I think. And yeah, Luke Cage started off really strong. That second half of that first season, though, is something.
Yeah. I don't know.
Does the first episode of the second season feel more like the beginning of season 1 or the end of season 1? Because
I think that the first episode, from what I could tell, was actually a strong start with a lot of the references to previous events and the way things are kind of like being set up to play out for the rest of this season. It's looking strong. I really liked a lot of the interactions, especially. I'm not going to spoil anything in case anyone is watching it or anything, but the interaction Luke has with his father is like, whew, that was like so beyond awesome. Like the way I don't want to say anything, but like just that whole exchange was so good.
That's fair. Yeah, the Marvel Netflix shows are kind of in an unfortunate spot because they're just about to die.
I mean, Iron Fist and Luke Cage are both canceled. Who knows what's going to happen with the other ones,
Yeah, Defenders is not getting a season 2 as far as we know, and Marvel, Disney Marvel is going to have their own streaming service, and it's just kind of and that whole, I don't know, the whole Netflix Marvel universe has some really cool stuff in it, but then it's also a lot of wasted potential and a lot of garbage, honestly. A lot of like it's I mean, Daredevil, season 3 came out, right? I haven't seen season 3.
Yeah, it just came out last week.
Oh, okay. Daredevil was pretty like consistently good all the way through. But all the rest of the shows kind of have those like 2 or 3 episodes towards the end of the seasons that are just like, wow, like they wanted a 7-episode season and Netflix wanted 10, and then I don't know, something happened.
Yeah.
Like pretty much all of them have that.
I'll be completely honest. Jessica Jones season 1 is like my absolute favorite. Then Daredevil season 1, and then The Punisher. And then like the Defenders and Daredevil season 2 is okay, but like Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones season 2, like I don't really care for any of them.
Yeah.
Like they're just kind of like lackluster at best for me. But I'm at least hopeful that these new seasons that I have yet to watch improved upon those flaws that the previous seasons had. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, once Disney does whatever they do, if they go with like more original television programming for streaming or whatever, they can make it a little more tied into everything because it'll be more in-house than having to work with Netflix production or whatever.
The only thing that concerns me is like, I don't know if they would attempt to like continue it or if they would just like soft reboot it or what, because like it's kind of in a weird position.
I don't know if this would ever happen, but I want to see Daredevil up on the big screen. Like, if no one else, if none of the rest of the characters, Daredevil at least, that actor, I don't know his name. Like, he's so phenomenal.
He is a
like,
very good Matt Murdock. Yes.
yeah, very easily. I could see him interacting with Spider-Man or whatever. Like, because that's the often team up on the. Actually, see, that would make sense. Have him be like the Tony Stark of Homecoming 2, where he's kind of like there, but he's not necessarily like co-build. He's just kind of like cameo appearance a few times, slight mentor appearance, that sort of thing. That'd be cool.
One last thing is, like, it's weird that it's like the Netflix series references the movies, but the movies don't really reference the Netflix series. So it's kind of one of those like one-way canon things. So it's like it's canon for the Netflix, but it's not canon for the movie. Yeah.
But
it's weird.
even in the one way, it's stupid because it's like, if the amount of times they'll be like, oh yeah, the big green guy did that, and it's like, who would say it like that? If the Hulk existed in the real world and in the Marvel continuity, like, the media has called him the Hulk. He is the Hulk. Like, this isn't like some code name that the military calls him. He's just known as that. Why would you go around calling him the big green guy? Like, like, that's our nickname for monsters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, big green guy. What have you watched this week?
So, I watched a lot of episodes of The Simpsons, but we'll hold that off for later.
Ooh.
But beyond that, I watched an episode of Chowder. Chowder is a show that I quite frankly find to be a little underrated, and I really enjoy it. It's fits that perfect spot in my world of humor. And I watched the episode. It's actually one of the first episodes, Chowder's Girlfriend. So for those of you that don't remember this episode or haven't seen Chowder, the episode is basically where Panini, who's Endive's chef, basically comes across Mung Dal and Chowder, discovers Chowder, and falls in love with him, and gets a little psycho, goes crazy, kind of stalks him. And Chowder's clearly not into Panini. So he has to make it very clear to her that he doesn't want to be her boyfriend. Going as far as having a theatric show with a man singing the song, "I'm not your boyfriend." And it's a really funny episode. It's one of my favorites of the show. And I highly recommend it if you haven't seen Chowder.
It is a really great episode. I second that.
Yeah.
I've still only seen bits and pieces of Chowder. that was in the I was getting a little older, and Cartoon Network had like several bombs up and around that. So I'm not saying Chowder's bad. I don't know, but it was just kind of one of those things. I feel like a lot of people who were maybe my age, maybe like a little older than you guys, kind of didn't watch Chowder because Cartoon Network had kind of like bombed enough around then, and like you kind of get into the age where your peers don't necessarily watch this stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, if you're a fan of the comedic stylings of C.H. Greenblatt and his other work, then I'm sure that you'll love Chowder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because he did a lot
absolutely.
of stuff before that, obviously, like Billy and Mandy, SpongeBob, and more recently he did Harvey Beaks.
Yes. Maybe I'll check it out sometime.
So, Pi, what did you watch?
Well, thank you for asking again, Monsters. I'm glad.
Yeah, I did not need to be reminded for that.
No, it's not like you're the co-host or anything.
Yeah. Cough, cough.
Yeah. So I watched Alien Force, Ben 10 Alien Force, most of season 3.
Uh-oh.
Whoa. No, about half of it. And let me tell you, I got some controversial opinions. But I won't be sharing them now, because I've been talking with Kuro, and he's got to rewatch season 3. But either in its own video or the next time he's on the recast, we'll be talking about that. And there might be some debate action going on, and I don't want to tease it too hard. But no, I mean, I guess all I'll say to start off is just that those first 4-ish episodes are just complete garbage. The two, so we could have very easily have done Back with a Vengeance and Vengeance of Vilgax as on the recast a few weeks ago, because those are the 2 episodes right after War of the Worlds, and they're both, it's another episode where Vilgax comes back, except Vilgax is now like Vilgax the World Conqueror who demands to challenge people for the fate of the Earth, and like he's like a glory hound, and he's nothing at all like Vilgax. It's
Right.
odd. It's very odd. And then also there's Ben's huge dip in maturity, like to the point where he's just like an idiot in that episode. And the Omnitrix apparently now, like, the aliens are like stored inside it like it's Pokemon or something, which is not the case for anything except for Ghost Freak, which they've justified that properly. Now it's just, oh, Ben, your aliens escaped the Omnitrix. Better go round them up. It's gonna be the plot of the next game on CartoonNetwork.com. I don't know. It's bad. And then the other two episodes are one with this like hillbilly miner mole guy that lives underground, collects explosives, and it's dumb. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it other than that it's just dumb. And then the fourth episode's the poop alien episode, which I've already talked about. So I saw that, and then I also, because you can't listen, Powerpuff Girls episodes, they're like Pringles. You can't just watch one. So I also watched a few episodes, but specifically Bubble Vicious and Los Dos Mojos.
Two of Bubbles' best episodes.
I was actually watching in part to see if they'd be kind of good fodder for the recast. I don't know. I mean, obviously they have the one connection, but I feel like maybe there's better comparison episodes out there. But they are both really good episodes. If you, which of these episodes, Shadow, which do you like more?
Of those two? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you're making me
pick between your babies.
Yeah, it's like how you're making me pick a favorite child here, dude.
All right.
Oh man.
As someone who just watched them both back to back, Los Dos Mojos is the better episode. Bubbles is way more hardcore in that one. Like she goes nuts on her sisters. Like she single-handedly defeats both of them.
Yeah. That's very true. Oh my gosh. I cannot pick. They are like equals to me. Like I can't.
There's also some great jokes about like Mojo getting out of the shower. He's in his bathrobe the whole episode. Or no, he's in a towel and Bubbles looks great in Mojo's costume as well. There's also like Buttercups gives this like rousing speech about like they can't fight Bubbles because she's their sister, and then Bubbles hurts her, and then she's like, all right, let me at her, and then Blossom like repeats her speech verbatim. Oh man. Not to discount Bubble Vicious as well, because Bubble Vicious is also a very good episode, and without Bubble Vicious we probably wouldn't have had Los Dos Mojos. Los Dos Mojos also has the better title. Bubble Vicious is good, but yeah, I don't know. I watched those two episodes. And then I also watched the episode where Morbucks and Mojo team up.
Oh, Mojob?
Yeah, which is another episode where Mojo's like taking a bath. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why this is like a running theme with this character. This probably only happens in those two episodes, but no, that one's an interesting one because there's like a long sequence where Mojo and Morbucks are just yelling
at each other. I'm not a baboon.
And I feel like in any other show, I would have gotten really frustrated with that really fast. But it manages to be funny through most of it. It wears a little on the end. But then there's also this long bit where like it's a slow motion scene with the girls like racing this laser beam.
Yep. Buttercup's like beating her chest. Yeah, I remember that.
It's just, I don't think there's ever been another show that has the same like sensibilities and style as the Powerpuff Girls. Like really, I mean, Dexter's Lab is close in that it uses a lot of the same sound effects. Gendy worked on both, obviously. Like it's kind of there, but I don't think there's been anything since that really kind of matches. Just I don't know, just everything about it. Like the fact that sometimes they'll just choose to focus on really random jokes or really random ideas and run with them, but it's always intriguing. They're always using like new camera angles and techniques and ideas. And like in Bubble Vicious, there's a racking shot where you see the girls reflected in Mojo's like dome thing of his like mech he's driving. And like they kind of rack focus, so you see the girls more in focus in the reflection. And it's just like, you know, for a mid-90s show, like it's just, I don't know.
It did have some cinematography to it. Like they did a lot of cool things. One of my favorite shots that the show liked to reuse time and time again was the shot where it's like whatever characters like got the camera is like between their like underneath their two legs, and you can see like what they're looking at beneath, and it's got like this framing device Yeah, I love that. I love when they do those kinds of shots.
I thought you were going to talk about because this happened in like 2 of the 3 episodes I watched. The recurring thing where like a character, usually Mojo, is like right up in the screen, and then the girls are behind, and they just keep doing these punch reverse punch, and it just they face the screen, face away from the screen, face, and it almost looks like a like there's not actually contact being made. Like when I actually paid attention to it, it kind of looked like Bowles and Mojo were doing like a comedy routine where it's like they don't actually make contact with each other. It's like, oh, you got me, but
right.
I don't know. They like to use that a lot, but we'll talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. Right now, we have news.
Oh boy.
So, I guess we'll start with the possible Zelda news. So, this gentleman, Adi Shankar, is rumored to be working on a Zelda series on Netflix for Nintendo. If you've been following this rumor, like years ago, I think like 2016, maybe 2017, there was this rumor that there was going to be like a Legend of Zelda show, and it was going to be maybe like Game of Thrones ? But you know, I mean, stuff like that takes a long time to produce, so we're not sure if this could be a continuation of that, or that project could have been scrapped. Who knows? But recently, this producer, Adi, who worked on the Castlevania series for Netflix, says that he's working on an iconic Japanese, or working with an iconic Japanese gaming company to adapt one of their iconic video game series into a series, which is not a great way to phrase that, but I'm no professional linguist. But basically, he tweeted that he's also going to like announce it November 16th at 1 p.m. And people are thinking that this is the Zelda show. Now, as far as I can tell from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like this isn't any sort of confirmation. They reach out to this news outlet, reached out to Nintendo, and Nintendo spokesperson says we have nothing to announce on the topic. So this might just be kind of like hopeful thinking or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't uncommon for Nintendo to try to keep things under wraps as much as possible. They're typically known to do that, so I mean, part of me is still inclined to have hope in some capacity. Plus, I mean, it does make sense considering that the rumors were spreading from, like you said, a few years ago. I personally wouldn't be opposed to a Legend of Zelda Netflix series. I think if any Nintendo franchise were to be chosen, it'd probably be something like either Zelda or Metroid, one of those two. So I think the chances are likely, but if it is something else, I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm not against this at all. Like, because the thing is that, I mean, as much as we kind of like talk down on adaptations and remakes and reboots and stuff on the show a lot, it's just that Zelda hasn't really had a good one ever in like television or movies. They had the cartoon, and then I don't know, there's probably an anime or something. But like seriously, you know, the Zelda, if anything, I mean, you could remake Ocarina of Time as like a mini series, and that'd be cool. I'd watch it.
Yeah,
I'd enjoy it.
I would totally be down for that.
I would prefer it to be like 2D animated, but if they want to kind of go with the Game of Thrones things where they throw a ton of money at it, sure, why not?
The one thing though is that if it is Legend of Zelda, like Link has to talk. Like a silent protagonist, like in a show, not really fond of that idea. Like I think he needs to talk.
Well, I mean, what if they just make it from Zelda's point of view? And Zelda like doesn't meet Link. Like she's in her castle and she just sees him running through the field.
I mean, I guess like they could do it that kind of, or they could pull a Breath of the Wild on us and tell Zelda's story where you only really see Link for those brief flashbacks, but everything else is about her. I don't know.
I mean, I think realistically, what you do is you make Link the strong silent type, where he's not completely mute. He says things, especially when spoken to, but he's like a kind of a soldier. I don't think he should be the central character, because you can kind of give him a little bit of personality and give him a voice and still kind of keep him a little bit neutral, so he doesn't like, you know, we don't feel jarred that he's now this guy with a personality and everything, when in the games he's more of an avatar.
Right.
If you were to focus more on Zelda, or you know, even the supporting characters like Impa, Ganondorf, Ganondorf's not a supporting character. You know,
The king. Yeah,
I mean,
I get
yeah.
you.
You know, you could do that, or if you wanted to be funny about it, you just every time Link goes to say something, you just have like a Zelda narration, like Link told me that the way is dark and the mysterious, and I shouldn't go alone.
Yeah.
Like just mute it and then have Zelda convey to it. I don't know. I mean, that'd be really stupid. I wouldn't actually want that. Monsters, you haven't said anything.
Kind of commenting on what you were saying about like Link being the quiet type. I was kind of imagining Samurai Jack.
Right.
So maybe that's kind of the type of character that Link could be.
Yeah, I could definitely see that working.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I'm not too familiar with Zelda. I've played bits and pieces. More or less, I know the characters from Smash. Like, you know, Zelda, Link, Ganondorf,
Toon
Sheik.
Link, obviously.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's Link's
Toon Link.
Link's pet or whatever.
I know for a fact it's going to be the center of a lot of attention. Not only because it's such a beloved franchise, but also it's a video game adaptation and people already have like high expectations for those and a lot of them don't turn out too well. And also Zelda itself, like you mentioned, hasn't had very good adaptations. So there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff thrown its way.
It's not even just that it hasn't had that many good ones. It just hasn't had that many, period.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And I think it's because Nintendo holds it in a certain reverence. I mean, obviously they do with their other franchises as well, but I think they recognize that Mario is more goofy, and that if you have, you know, a really comedic, really goofy, really weird adaptation of Mario, it's like, okay, like that fits within the Mario world. It might be a bad version of it, but you know, whatever. But if you see, you know, Link saying, oh, what did he say? Excuse me, princess. That kind of cheapens the character a little bit. So I think maybe that's why they're a little more protective of that franchise over the others. I mean, I listen. I'm still holding out for a Pikmin series. I want it. I want
That
it so
would be
badly.
pretty great.
Where's
like
my
Olimar
Captain
and the
Falcon
Pikmin
series at?
exploring the galaxy. Oh,
Dude, I
Wasn't
still
there
want
already a
Metroid
Captain
stuff.
Falcon series?
Yes, there was an F-Zero anime, and at the end, Captain Falcon uses a Falcon punch so powerful that it blows up like half the galaxy.
okay.
That's not
Fair
even
enough.
an exaggeration. Like,
How old is the anime? From like the 80s or 90s?
I think it's from the 90s.
Well, wait a minute. If it's a Falcon punch, it's definitely from after Smash Bros.
Well, maybe it was early 2000s. It was probably early 2000s.
They
actually,
haven't
yeah.
made an F-Zero game in God knows when.
2003 or 4. F-Zero GX was the last one. It was like
Wasn't there one for the Game Boy too? Or is that the one that you're talking
Game
about?
Boy Advanced had, I believe, 2 of them. Also,
Yeah, I think that was before the GameCube one though.
technically Shadow. He had a game in Nintendo Land.
No, that doesn't count.
I mean, the
Don't
captain
even.
didn't appear. Technically, the F-Zero has stages in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, no. Oh my
Technically,
gosh.
Captain Falcon appears in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate this year.
Oh my gosh.
Speaking of which, did you guys see that? Did you guys see that direct?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't it awesome how insert character here was confirmed?
Yeah, I know.
I'm
and
so
and
excited.
I can't believe what they did with Shadow the Hedgehog. That decision they made with that character. Ooh,
Oh my God. Did you guys see that reference to that new movie by Illumination Entertainment?
what? What?
You mean
the Grinch is confirmed for Smash Bros?
Dude, the Grinch is responsible for those Smash leaks. Let me
Yeah.
tell you what.
Oh.
Thanks,
we're
Back on the
recording.
topic of
Illumination.
Zelda, though, like if it's from this Adi Shankar guy and he's partially responsible for Castlevania. Castlevania is a great anime. I've seen it's and bits of season 1. I haven't seen any of season 2. But I mean, if he's partially responsible for making that such a good series, I have high hopes for how this turns out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, season 1. I've seen all of season 1, and yeah, it is very, very good. Was not disappointed. I still need to watch season 2 as well, but yeah, I have high
That's
hopes
fresh
if
off
he's
the press.
behind it. Yeah.
Parts of me hopes that this is some troll, like from the way he phrased it, and that it's like a Bomberman series or something. Like, right? I mean, like, I'm working with an iconic Japanese gaming company to adapt one of their iconic video game series into a series. Like,
Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures rebooted.
yes. Oh man.
That'd be great.
Maybe it's a Shadow the Hedgehog series.
Dude, I'd pay millions
Okay,
would pay
what
millions.
what if it was a CG Shadow the Hedgehog series where he actually got to use guns and shoot people?
Dude, does he say
Memes and lit.
every other word?
Whoa! Monsters, bleep that.
Does he say and
Just edit in like
No, it's gonna be bleeps.
completely edit in completely like child-friendly words like sunshine and rainbows or something.
But no, he can shoot people. He just can't use foul language.
Oh, okay.
Those are the recast rules. If you want to, if you want to shoot me, you can do that. But you
just can't swear.
right. Yep. The recast follows Sonic the Hedgehog rules. All right. Well, let's move on then. I've heard enough from this Adi Shankar guy. Oh wait, lol, JK. All right. So now for some nice and non-controversial stuff. So basically, there was a lot of news with Apu this week. After Monsters last week talked about how you saw a series on Apu, and I made, the brain dump video on Apu, and I made a joke saying that it was a very timely response of him because it's like a year after. You know, everything happened. And then, like, a week after, like, before the last recast even came out, there was news on Apu. And then it turned out that it wasn't news on Apu. And then, like, the non-news is now our news on Apu. So if you can't follow that, and I don't blame you, basically what happened is that the same guy that was talking about adapting an iconic Japanese game series mentioned that he's heard from inside sources that Apu is going to be written out of The Simpsons in, I think, like 1 year. And then, you know, this led to like another just like upsurge in debate about the character, about how this should him leaving be handled, about, it's social justice gone mad, it's blah, blah, blah. And then Al Jean, I think Al Jean had the best response to this. He's I believe the executive producer on The Simpsons. And he said, Adi Shankar is not the producer of The Simpsons, not a producer on The Simpsons. I wish him the very best, but he does not speak for our show. Which is good, because he wasn't outright, like, awful. Like, he didn't, insult this guy, but at the same time, he still kind of, like, put him in his place, because it's like, yeah, you know what? Like, Mr. I heard from rumors or whatever, I don't know. He's stirring the pot, and so I kind of like how Al Jean kind of just, like, kind of shut him up, but in a nice way. And Addy's response was, I wish you well, too. Let's work towards common ground. Ignoring only fans the flames. The world is polarized and getting even more so, and the onus is on us to bring people together, engage in a constructive way, and and this matter will go to bed. I see you, now I'm asking you to see me. Which is an interesting response. All right. So I made a video on, honestly, not really on the Apu situation, more on the Simpsons episode that covered the Apu situation, and my analysis of it was that I mean, the episode was trash for a number of reasons. It was a Minecraft episode in 2017 or 2018. I can't even remember. But no, I mean, I didn't like their response, because their response was very much like, let's kind of placate everyone by saying like, oh, we're not getting rid of Apu. Sometimes this happens. But then also saying like, we might deal with this at a later date, which I feel is like middle ground is nice, but like, why even say anything at all? Like, why even acknowledge it in the show if your response is like, we may or may not do something about Apu. We didn't think he was racist, but he might be. Right. I don't know. And anyway, I guess I'll go first on this, and just saying that with the Apu stuff, I think that it's very good to have a dialogue about this sort of thing, about anything in media, honestly, like not just the most serious of issues, but the storytelling issues, but of course also the issues that do affect the real world and real people. And I think that no matter what, like, however I feel about it personally, I don't think it's a bad thing to have this discussion. What I don't like is how a lot of this discussion about Apu turned into people just like slamming on the Simpsons writers, calling them racist, calling them awful people, saying awful things, like being upset that the Simpsons writers didn't kowtow to what they personally believed about the Apu issue. And then people on the other side being like, oh, it's social justice gone mad. It's political correctness gone mad, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, people actually having a discussion about it, because there's a discussion to be had about this character, about how we as a society put minorities and they're like how we utilize them in stories. I think there's a discussion to be made. I personally don't care if they retire Apu, simply because I feel like the Simpsons should just retire every character and be done. So, in my eyes, Apu ended as a character like 10 years ago anyway. But in terms of like, I can kind of see both sides of the story, and yeah, I don't really. I mean, if they don't retire him, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think they have made strides to make Apu more developed and more rounded, but it's just kind of like one of those things where, with as many ethnicities as there are in the world, it's like, well, what the options are: either, the writers don't include those ethnicities, or should they, like, do they have to have those ethnicities on the writing board to write for them? I don't know. It kind of ends up in this debate of like, well, okay, so you do this with Apu, but then what about like any of the like 80 other ethnicities that have been referenced on The Simpsons? Should they also be removed because the writers are not, Asian? Like, what? Where does it end? Where does it begin? But no, I'm interested in hearing everyone's opinion on this. I just hate how it very often turns into this big like slam, or this big like people won't even have the debate or the discussion because they're just automatically like, oh, how dare they call Apu insensitive or racist? Like, oh, like they just, they shut it down because they see it as extreme or whatever. And I mean, I do think in part from what I've seen of the documentary, it was a little maybe more combative than it needed to be. But then again, to be fair, if it wasn't as kind of like inflammatory and strong stance as it was, maybe it wouldn't have garnered any attention. How do you guys feel about this? Sorry, I talked for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I should probably start off by saying that not also.
Well, you should start off by saying you don't watch The Simpsons.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not a big fan of The Simpsons, not because I don't dislike the show, but just because I didn't really grow up with it and I never found an interest in watching it. Therefore, I'm kind of indifferent towards the show. And I may reiterate a little bit of that video that I was mentioning last week, The Apu I Know by Max Gilardi. But recently, in the past week, I overheard a conversation of people talking about this issue. And they full on admitted that they didn't watch The Simpsons, but that they felt like he was the result of lazy writing, and that Apu needs to go, and that his character just needs to be gone because he's not representative of modern day America. And I mean, I didn't feel like it was my time and place to really comment on it, but I do feel like Apu, from the episodes I've seen, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I have seen a few more episodes that are that feature Apu prominently, but I feel like he's a bait and switch. Because he has some stereotypical qualities, obviously, because, he runs a gas station, he's an Indian character, but he also doesn't let that define him, because he's a naturalized U.S. citizen that left everything behind in the country where he came from. He graduated first in his class of 7 million. He has a PhD in computer science. He's a family man. He's a workaholic.
Took a test to become a legal American citizen.
Yeah. And I mean, I can never know what it's like to have that perspective, or I don't know if the character causes harm because, I'm not an Indian American, but I do feel like the character isn't something that should be dismissed or written off. I feel like that character, if anything, is worthy of praise. And I think it's fair to say that every Simpsons character is a caricature or stereotype of some sort. And when comparing Apu to other characters, I think he's one of the most intelligent and level-headed. Shadow, I'm glad that you're on this podcast too, because this situation reminded me so much of Miss Bellum. Miss Bellum being removed from the Powerpuff Girls reboot after some people thinking that, it was sexist that she had that hourglass figure and that was it. But only true fans of the Powerpuff Girls would know that she's easily the most intelligent and level-headed character in the show, and that she didn't let her, physical attributes stand as her entire purpose. Yeah. But, yeah, what do you think?
Only 90s kids would know the most important part of Miss Bellum is her brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. For real. No, that is a good comparison. You pretty much hit the nail on the head. I'm in the same boat with you, Monsters. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I don't really follow The Simpsons that much. I never really got into it, and I didn't grow up with it either, so I don't have that much of an attachment to the character. But I do think that some of the perspectives may be skewed just from not having all the facts or not looking at it from different points of view. I've heard both sides of the argument, and I don't really feel that I'm in a position where I can really say which side is right or wrong because, again, I'm not an Indian American either, and I also don't have an attachment to the character. I couldn't really tell you what he's like, so I'm more interested in what Pieguy mentioned about how this is something that is worthy of discussion, considering how a lot of media has changed over the past 20 years and how we portray people of different ethnicities today compared to how we would back then.
Shadow, 30 years.
30 years? Oh, that's right.
30 years.
Okay,
1989, right?
Tis the 30th season.
I just think 90s when I think Simpsons, so I was like generalizing there. Anyway.
Yeah, but Monsters, what decade do you think we're in? What year is it, Shadow? It's almost
it's like 2011, right?
Sure, man. Yeah.
You guys heard about that new show called Adventure Time?
Are you excited? You excited for Dance Pants?
Dude, I can hardly believe that we are almost a year away from being done with this decade. That's like insane. But not to go off on that tangent.
I like the way you phrased that. I'm done with this decade. Yeah. But anyway, going back.
No, not to go off on that tangent, but yeah, no, I pretty much agree. I think that it is something worthy of discussion, and I think that a lot of interesting points can be made for both sides. I just think that it did get blown out of proportion, and it just became a lot of yelling one way or the other without much of a discussion. Just kind of like,
I agree exactly, and that's the thing. Like, I don't have that much knowledge in The Simpsons in the first place. I do have a lot of knowledge on Apu now that I researched the character and was intrigued by this whole controversy. But if people are going to have a dialogue, I feel like they should at least be familiar with the character, be familiar with the circumstances, and not just throw out all these accusations and entitled opinions based off of headlines that they've read and nothing else.
Okay, so here's the crux of it, is that Apu, starting out in like the first and second season, I mean, even in maybe the first 3 seasons, until he got his own focus episode, he was, gas station attendant, thank you, come again, like very kind of like, I don't want to say racist accent because I don't really know, but like accent that wasn't necessarily the kindest. Definitely wasn't played by an Indian guy. You know, and then since then, the writers have made strides in trying to make him as well-rounded a character. I mean, almost to making him like a kind of a Mary Sue, because they boosted him up so much, you know. And even still, there was an episode only a few seasons back that kind of had Apu's like his hip nephew coming to town or something, and he was a full-fledged Indian American, like pretty much nothing culturally about him was Indian, and there was kind of a culture clash there. Like, they've acknowledged this, they've done this, but the thing is that Apu did start off from a place of that, and from what I hear, and again, I'm also not an Indian American, from what I hear, a lot of younger Indians got called Apu or got the Quickie Mart lines thrown at them and stuff. And that's not the Simpsons' fault necessarily, but I do feel like there is kind of that cultural sore spot from years and years ago. Now, that doesn't, just because the writers have made strides in making him more well-rounded, doesn't mean he doesn't exist as like a reminder of a racist time or a reminder of a society that isn't as sensitive. Right. He can still do that, and I think that's really kind of where the argument exists. The people that are kind of jumping in and being like, Apu is racist now, like his current characterization is racist, and people jump on the headlines like, oh, it's written by like Harvard graduate white people, he doesn't know anything. It's like, those are like sensationalism, and that's meant to kind of like pick at some sort of emotional response in you. That's not an argument in good faith. The good faith argument is saying, well, yes, they have developed Apu to the best of their abilities, but we feel like maybe they didn't do the best of jobs, or we feel that the character was just kind of not a good representation of us off the gate, and no matter what you do going forward, that kind of old wound still sits there. Now, like I said
Yeah.
at the top, from a character perspective, from a show perspective, it doesn't matter whether Apu continues on or not. I mean, I like Apu. I'm not saying he's a bad character that should be written off, but at this point, we've had Edna Krabappel, we've had Troy McClure. Now those were because of deaths, but those characters left the show because of deaths. But it's not like there's not tons and tons of characters on The Simpsons to balance out Apu being missing or or what have you. I just feel like it is one of those things where this should have been kept in a dialogue. I don't think The Simpsons should have made an episode about this unless they had a particularly strong or interesting thing to say about it. I don't but no, I think I very much encourage all discussion on media as long as it's done in a civil way, and I think that no character is above re-examining and re-looking and like asking the question, is X character racist or like whatever, like as long as you have an actual discussion and argument behind it, I don't think that's a bad thing. People kind of like curl up and like immediately like, I can't deal with this, but it's like, no, it's just a discussion. Like I don't know.
Right.
People have become very very kind of isolated from, I don't know, from what a discussion really looks like. That isn't a let's sling mud, let's try to dredge up the most emotional response we can bring up. Only go by headlines, and so.
Well, that's the interesting thing about the documentary, because it focuses less about the character and the traits on paper that the character has, and more about the character's origins and the intentions and thoughts that went into creating the character. Which, again, like you mentioned, the character did start out in a bit of a rough place, but slowly evolved into something a bit more well-rounded.
Well, and the thing too also to remember is that I don't think Apu to start out was necessarily. He's not like what the Asian character from like 16 Candles or whatever. Like he wasn't like a guy in blackface or something. Like insensitive, sure, but he was not this in your face. I don't think anyway. I mean, maybe people disagree, but I don't think Matt Groening had ill intention when he created this character. I think that's just. He wanted to create a gas station character, and maybe he's just most familiar with. And I mean, I'm not saying that isn't like a bad stereotyping, but I don't think it came from any ill intent place. But it's just, I don't know. This whole thing is just kind of spiraled to a place that I'm just not very happy with, and
yeah,
I just because the thing is that I think Apu is such a fringe borderline case that arguments can be made both ways, and because no other show has been airing for 30 stinking years, there's not any other things that we can draw example to. But I think that's what frustrates a lot of these people that are like hardcore into these like super identity politics issues, is that it frustrates them because people want a resolution. They want to feel like we as a society came to a conclusion that like, yes, Apu is racist, or no, Apu isn't racist. But that's never going to happen in this example because of how fringe it is. We don't have anything else to draw on.
Right. Yeah. It's an odd case.
Mm-hmm. But no, it's interesting. I mean, if they want to retire Apu, go for it. If they don't, the thing that I personally think is that they've made their really weak response in the show. So from here on out, whether they keep him or don't, they shouldn't do anything like make a parody of this or anything.
No.
At that point, it's in bad taste, because that's not discussion. That's just throwing more on the fire.
Bye, Apu.
Well, it's actually funny.
Oh, no.
It's funny because the South Park, like 2 weeks ago, did an episode called "The Problem with Apu," or last week, 2 weeks ago, I don't know which one. And it was like a light parody of the events with Apu, and the episode wasn't very good. But I don't know. It's weird that people kind of prophesized that this was going to become an issue again just now. I don't know. Oh boy. All right. Well, on that heavy note, our third piece of news is actually really light. There's going to be a Cartoon Network hotel in Lancaster, PA, of all places. Do you guys remember the Nick Hotel?
Yeah. I mean, that was in
Barely.
sunny Orlando. I mean, I don't know about Lancaster, PA.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's there. Yeah, no, I went to the Nick Hotel as a youngling, and I had a good time. And I've seen, if you've seen like the Funklands video on it, an interview with one of the managers there, you kind of hear about some of the reasons why that was like not really a sustainable thing, especially when like a lot of it was like wallpaper, and like a lot of like the designs were like characters that have gone out of fashion. Like it needed a remodel, and Viacom or whoever didn't want to pump the cash into it, and Nickelodeon wasn't even in Orlando, like in Universal anymore, basically. So like there's a number of reasons why that failed, but no, I mean this seems like a cool, just a cool thing. It doesn't seem to be as like extravagant or crazy, but it definitely seems to have some kind of cool technology in it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm most curious about is if they're just gonna stick with like the modern stuff, or if they're gonna have it like across their entire gallery of different shows. That's kind of what intrigues me the most.
You want an out of Jimmy's head area?
Heck yeah, my dude.
I want
Are
to
you
see.
kidding me?
I want to see Jimmy in his 2006 haircut staring at
Dude,
me.
That's
I
actually not a
hope-
bad idea, though. Doing like an AR simulator where you look around wearing VR glasses and like everything
And
looks
all
normal,
the-
but you see like all of the cartoon characters superimposed in the environment around you.
That would actually be really cool. Dude, could you imagine live musical performances from Andrew WK? Heck yeah, sign me
Oh my
up.
god!
You know what? Actually, I think I know why it's going to be in Lancaster, in and about that area and Jersey, and I think mostly PA actually. They have a lot of these indoor water parks. That's like a big deal, and that's what that seems to be. Well, I don't know. They got an indoor pool. I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's not. Never mind.
I don't know what the significance is of that location specifically, why it was chosen over anywhere else, but yeah.
They have lawn games and fire pits, game room, play
boy.
area. I don't know. It kind of sounds a lot like the Nick Hotel, but like the thing is that the Nick Hotel was a great idea. It's just a lot of it was kind of like non-customizable or updatable. It was like, but if they go with a smaller property, because the Nick Hotel was also huge. This is only 165 rooms, which I'm never gonna get to go there then. Probably. It's got bacon pancakes. So
I heard. So that's like a easy sell right there.
Right.
To answer your question, Shadow, according to the Deadline article, it says that they're going to feature shows such as Adventure Time, We Bare Bears, the Powerpuff Girls, Steven Universe,
Wait.
Gumball, and Ben 10.
It's probably the reboot.
Don't say that, dude. Don't say that. It's gonna be the original Girls.
Look, I don't want to be a pessimist. I mean, here's the thing. It was confirmed a while back that the reboot is going to continue airing through 2019, and that's when the hotel's coming out. So, like, I don't want to be a pessimist, but I'm convinced it's probably going to be the reboot.
Powerpuff Girls, but it's just Bliss, just Bliss. The original
It's just
Girls.
Bliss. It's not even the actual other girls. It's just Bliss.
No.
Yeah.
It's Bliss and Miss Bellum because that's where she's been on vacation.
And don't forget Donnie and Jared.
Oh God. Could you imagine the theme of the hotel is just like dead Cartoon Network characters that have either been banished or no one wants to see again? Is there like a shadow realm for Cartoon Network characters? Oh man. No, but this is cool news. This is lighthearted news compared to other stuff. I got nothing pessimistic to say about it. I just hope it does well. I hope they maintain it is the thing.
Yeah, I would say,
Yeah, me too.
I'd be interested in visiting, but now that I think about it, a guy visiting a kid's hotel doesn't sound like the best idea.
Monsters, we'll do a meetup.
Okay.
Me, you, Shadow, and Kuro. All right, just 4 adult guys. Just go into it.
Recast live from the Cartoon Network hotel.
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah. All right. Great. So expect that in 10 years when the place is like about to close and we can afford it.
Yeah.
Recast number 100 will be at the Cartoon Network hotel. And it'll still be the Powerpuff Girls, but it'll be the Powerpuff Girls reboot. So
Yeah.
it'll be a reboot based upon the 2016 series. That's what's like all along the walls.
This time they'll actually get a guy to voice Buttercup.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, that's news. And that's the news. So next up, we're gonna do the question of the week, and from now on, I think as long as it's all right with you, Monsters, Shadow, you get no say. I think we're gonna just do one question every week because our recasts have been running long lately, and I think limiting it to one is a good idea.
Sure.
Shadow, I kind of want to know your opinion now that I shut you down.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, once you said I have no say, I just once you said I have no say, I just kind of went over to Pokemon Go. So
you and Kuro each get a. You and Kuro each get a. Are you jogging while you're doing this recast?
No, I'm just sitting. I'm just sitting
Go.
over.
He mutes his microphone. Ooh, a Tentacruel.
Yeah. No, I actually just caught a Drifloon because the Halloween event's going on. Anyway, that's not important. Ask the question.
Okay. Well, I just have to clarify that you do get half a vote. You and Kuro both. You
All or
both
nothing.
get a vote, but only half.
Am I allowed to vote for both this time, or was that like still not allowed?
No, you that's not allowed.
Why not?
Half a vote is all right. Quarter of a vote doesn't make sense. All right. So, from Khalid on the Recast Discord, which we have, by the way, he asked the question: do you like a serious continuity heavy reboot like TMNT 2012 or DuckTales 2017, or do you prefer a comedy reboot that's not Teen Titans Go, like Rise of the TMNT? Lot of TMNTs in there.
Yeah.
By that I mean two. Okay, so I picked this question. I like the question. It's not a bad question, but I also thought we could maybe expound upon it a little bit and talk about how we kind of feel about like serious reboots versus comedic reboots, and like what happens, because like there's a difference between a serious show doing a comedic reboot and a comedic show doing a serious reboot. Both have happened, and it's interesting. What do you think, Monsters?
Well, for this question, I chose continuity-driven stuff and more serious things because, I like to get invested in story arcs. Most of my favorite shows are just in general very continuity-heavy. But in terms of comedy, I'm like a fan generally of really offensive, raunchy, risque type things. And especially with kids' TV becoming increasingly less willing to make, slide in like those occasional adult or sexual references. You don't really find a lot of that stuff anymore. And especially with, recent reboots like the Powerpuff Girls 2016 or Ben 10 2016, the humor is really hit or miss for me, most of the time missing. And only a few cartoons just in general really have the capacity to make me, generate laughter. So I just said serious because I think just in terms of risk taking, I think those are more of a safe choice than comedy, which can be a bit more difficult to pull off.
Really? Well, I guess
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm in a similar boat. I like continuity-driven shows. I like comedic shows too. But I think it's always really interesting to see something that kind of lies in comedic roots try to do something more serious with those roots. A great example of this is Lunatics Unleashed. And by great example, I mean that's an example of what can happen when it goes really wrong. I mean, I guess kind of another example, sorta, is Mystery Incorporated. But yeah, I'm also not a huge fan of that one either. But like I kind of like Mystery Incorporated is actually a good example to talk about with this, because I do feel like even though I didn't like the relationship-y stuff, taking some of like the Scooby-Doo mythos and like using that in storylines, like having one character claim she's like the Creeper's daughter, that's interesting. Like that's always kind of like really interesting and an interesting kind of more serious reimagining. But like I said with Lunatics Unleashed, it can go really wrong. But then again, I guess it's not like with Lunatics Unleashed doesn't make me like hate the Looney Tunes. Whereas if you do a comedic reboot of a serious show and you do it wrong, I mean, I don't hate the Teen Titans, but man, that's always just associated there. What do you think, Jado?
For me, I don't really have a preference one way or the other when it comes down to which direction a reboot would go. But like at the end of the day, I just want a quality show. If it's a great comedy, then heck yeah, I'll laugh along and love it. Or if it's a really well done narrative driven show, then yeah, I'd totally follow along with it. For me, I guess I would say that I'm with you in the sense that like the Powerpuff Girls reboot, because I harp on it so much, is like the biggest disappointment I think I could possibly have for any cartoon in existence, because it's like, let's take a totally fantastic, a brilliant cartoon, and completely get rid of everything that made it brilliant and fantastic.
Yep.
So when you see something like that happen, it's disheartening. But at the same time, I don't know, because I know I see
Well, which
this
one?
argument.
Hang on. Which one would you consider this to be? That you're talking about? I mean, the Powerpuff Girls was a comedy, of course, but it was a comedy that had serious elements, and then the Powerpuff Girls reboot is 110% comedy.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at, is that while the original wasn't completely continuity driven, it was kind of like a balance. And
Right.
I was getting to the point that in this specific case, I feel like if you lean one way, if you lean too far one way or the other, like if it was too action focused or too comedy focused, like the reboot, I feel like it just wouldn't work. So
Right.
in this context, I'm not a fan of that. But like if you were to take something like you know, I've said this before, I don't hate Teen Titans Go. I know that in the question I'm not
Shocker.
allowed to. I know in this question I'm not allowed to list Teen Titans Go as an answer, but I mean, like, I don't know. I thought the first season and a half was good. I enjoyed it, but that's a whole can of worms in and of itself. So I think that a comedy reboot can be done well. But Teen Titans Go isn't the best example. And from what I have seen of Rise of the TMNT, I think that is a show that's doing it well. So like it can totally be done.
Well, okay, so yeah, I'm gonna actually say that I would prefer a comedic show to go serious, because when you take a serious show and turn it more comedic at least, you're left with this feeling of, I want more of that serious show. You see this time and time again where people, even the people that like Total Drama-Rama, still want another season of Total Drama Island, and they're not getting it. And it's not necessarily because of Total Drama-Rama, but because Total Drama-Rama is a success, there's no way they're going to go back to Island. At least not now, maybe in a few years. Same thing with Ben 10. I know a guy named Kuro who doesn't hate the Ben 10 reboot, but he I mean, it's like, it just, you just kind of look at it and you say like, well, why didn't they just continue on with what they were doing? You know what I mean? Like, you see that a lot with comedic reboots, because very, very rarely does a comedic and a serious show exist like in the same property alongside each other. So it's just kind of like, when you take something comedic and you turn it more serious, typically it's going to still have those comedic elements in there that you liked anyway. Maybe they're even be heightened, because when you have comedic elements in a more serious show, it's more surprising and fun. Whereas the other way around, you are kind of left thinking like, well, okay, even if I found Teen Titans Go funny, it's like, I mean, I don't necessarily think Teen Titans needs a season 6, but I would still prefer that to having Go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I would ask the question that, wouldn't it, like, what if you did take like something that's really light and comedy based, and you made it like this super action, like gritty show,
But
like,
that never happens, Shadow. When does that happen?
Well, that's what I was actually going to bring. What I was going to ask was, do you think if it was a more common practice that people would be saying the same thing?
You're right.
Do you think people would prefer that, like, show? But see, that also becomes another issue, because if shows just stick to their same medium the whole time, like the whole way through, they're never gonna like branch out, try new things. It's gonna be the same old over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're not wrong, because I mean, just thinking of an example like the DC extended universe, people argue that that's too grimdark, that's too bland, that doesn't have any of the fun of comic books. Whereas, yeah, I mean, and that's right now, this is the adaptation of like Superman that we have. This is the adaptation of Batman that we have. This is these are the, surely we'll get more of them. I mean, you can look to other mediums, like you can look to even direct to DVD movies. But in terms of like the main cinema versions of these characters, that's what we have right now. And yeah, people don't like it, because to suck all the fun out of it, it's unfortunate. But I do think that more often than not, when you have like the example listed here was the original or like maybe 03 Turtles to 2012 Turtles, And I feel like 2012 Turtles, I mean, the episode we saw was like purely comedic, basically.
Right.
I feel like more often than not, when you go from comedy to serious, you still keep those comedic elements. Whereas when you go from serious to comedic, sometimes those serious elements are completely thrown by the wayside. I mean, like Total Drama Rama, from the very little I've seen about, it's no continuity. It's not it's not anything like a show that builds on a narrative or anything like that. It's just pure wacky comedy, which is fine. But if you someone that cared about that, that's completely gone. You're not getting that back in that show anyway, most likely, unless they do an arc about finding Chris or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that like it's kind of becomes a point of when do you cross the line? Like what is the point where it's like you've gone too far? Because you listed the Ben 10 reboot that's currently going on. And what I've seen, it's like, yeah, it's more comedy based than the original and like the other series, but it's not like so far gone like the reboot is.
Well,
like,
here's the thing. Ben 10 season 1 and then Ben 10 season like 2 and then 3 going forward, the show has evolved as time went on. If you look at the first like 20 or 30 episodes in season 1, it's 100% standalone. And they're long seasons too, but like it's standalone, the villains are more wacky, and because it's 11 minutes, you lose out on a lot of that. Now going forward, the episodes that we saw, the other, like also the Vilgax episodes at the end of season 1, that brings in a little bit more depth to the show. Those bring in longer episodes. So that's a little different. But if we're talking about an initial Ben 10 reboot, those first like 30 episodes in season 1, then those ones I would definitely agree that those are more detached from the original Ben 10 because they're 11 minutes. In 11 minutes, they're going to tell more jokes than they're going to tell more, than they're going to tell story or whatever. All right. Anything else, guys?
No, I think that's all I have to say that I wanted to bring up.
Khalid, this was a great question. Very, very good discussion. I think this is a very interesting topic that doesn't have a clear-cut answer, but I think there's various facets to it.
Right.
And we've definitely seen it go both ways. Like the DuckTales 2017 is I mean, again, I wouldn't consider that to be grimdark, but that's a much more, it takes things more seriously than the original one did. All right. So next week we have the Tiny Toons episode A Quack and the Quarks and the Pinky and the Brain episode Star Warners. We probably won't have a guest unless does anyone out there like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and want to be on the recast? I may have opened a can of worms with this, but no, if you know someone that would be a good candidate for that episode, please tweet at us or send it in the Discord. And then the week after that, we have Keystone Motel and Mr. Greg from Steven Universe with someone who I've worked with on my channel before, but I won't say that person's name just in case they can't make it. But this one should be interesting because there's a person in this podcast that has never seen Steven Universe.
Not entirely accurate, but
all right, that hasn't seen much of Steven Universe.
But yeah, I've seen the pilot and then like 2 of the 11-minute. I've seen Say Uncle, and then I saw one episode that I can't remember where they get attacked on the boardwalk.
Oh, it's probably like Frybo or something, or maybe Arcade Mania.
Someone's like running a shop. I think it is Arcade Mania.
Or is that the name of that episode?
It was one of the earlier episodes.
Okay, so you saw 2 non-continuity things and then a random season 1 episode. So you haven't seen, you basically have seen nothing of Steven Universe.
Sure.
Good job.
And the interesting thing about these episodes are they're 2 episodes where Steven, Greg, and a gem go to a different state, stay in a hotel or motel, and try to solve that character's problems, both of which problems relate to each one of their big mysteries or big reveals from season 1, which would make this very fun for you monsters. Right. I mean, I'm sure at this point you know the thing about Garnet. If you know anything about the series, you probably know that Garnet's a fusion. Or maybe not. Maybe I spoiled it.
I'm still slightly confused by the concept of a fusion.
See, when a mommy gem and another mommy gem love each other very much.
Like Ruby and Sapphire, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
They make a Garnet.
Right.
You'll see. I mean, Mr. Greg is my favorite episode of the entire series. I think.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe Reunited might have surpassed that, but maybe not. Not sure. But Mr. Greg is one of the best. Keystone Motel is also another phenomenal episode. They're both very entrenched in what was going on at the time for those characters. So I'm really excited to see Monsters' reaction. I want you to do me a favor. I know this is in 2 weeks, but I want you to do me a favor and don't watch any of the rest of Steven Universe.
I wasn't planning on it, but I will not.
Okay, good. All right. So yeah, we got that in 2 weeks to look forward to. Okay. So we have today's featured discussion, which is Roughing It Up and Clawdad. Now, I kind of prompted you to pick this, at least for Clawdad, because I know you just did a review on it, Shadow, and I liked your review.
Oh, thank you.
But I think it's actually a pretty good one because it's from a season 6 or 5 or 6.
Yeah,
6.
season 6.
Season 6 episode of the original Powerpuff Girls. So it's like last time when we did the Powerpuff Girls, it's kind of unfair because it's like one of the most. I can't even say one of the most iconic because most episodes from the first 3 seasons are like super iconic, but very likable, very interesting, very different episode in Twisted Sister. And then comparing it to Bliss, which is controversial at best, maybe. But this time we're taking an episode from a season that's not as loved as the other ones and comparing it to Clawdad, which is not it's definitely not one of the most heinous episodes of the reboot. So I don't know. I think maybe there's a chance we might get some different opinions in here. But Shadow, would you like to give us the description for Roughing It Up?
Yeah, so Roughing It Up, basically, it's an episode in which the professor decides to go on a vacation with his girls, and they decide to take a camping trip, and they go to one of the public parks nearby to go camping, and it just so happens that coincidentally Fuzzy Lumpkins is also going on a camping trip with his 3 young nephews, and it's basically an episode about the Utoniums and the Lumpkins having to share the space of the area while they're trying to enjoy their respective vacations, and hijinks ensue.
Monsters, what did you think of this episode?
I liked it. I've seen better Powerpuff Girls episodes, but taking into consideration, because I've seen a little bit of the later seasons, like post Craig McCracken Powerpuff Girls, and with that in mind, I do think that this is a pretty solid episode.
I'm gonna say I don't think I've ever seen this episode before. To be honest with you, I've talked before about how I own the full series set, but like every time I rewatch the series and I get to season 5, I don't know. I hit a sticking point. I watched See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, and then I'm like, all right, I've had enough.
Yeah.
not because that one's bad, but just that's the thing I need to see in those seasons, and then the rest is maybe yeah. But not that there's not good ones in there. Anyway, but yeah, no, I don't think I'd ever seen this one, and I a little conflicted on it.
Oh yeah, interesting.
All right, well, what do you think? What do you think, Shadow? I'll get into it when we get into it. What do you think?
I'll admit that, like, this is definitely one of the it's easily forgotten compared to a lot of the other episodes in the original series, but I don't necessarily think it's bad. It does have some flaws that I think could be better, but like compared to the other season 6 and season 5 episodes, I'd put it in the better half of the episodes for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd classify it as I don't like the way the story plays out. I really don't like the ending, but
Ooh.
You all right, Monsters?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, because I agree with you on like the story not playing out very well. I didn't like the way that the story was structured, but I thought the ending was one of the best parts.
All right, well, let's talk about it then. So the ending is basically, well, the story is basically the Lumpkins do all of these awful things to like nature, and the girls are shocked, and the professor is basically like, now, girls, don't fight them. Like, peace. We're gonna have a peaceful vacation. Up until Fuzzy chops down his not cherry tree, and then the professor goes nuts, and then the girls and the Lumpkins kids, the cousins or nephews or whatever, they're just chilling. Okay, it's dumb because nothing changed What changed? The girls were upset at like there's kids they like try to shoot a bird that the girls are like bird watching and is endangered. Why are the girls suddenly getting along with them other than that it's like the punchline of the episode or the tag?
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was endearing, just the fact that these two adult figures were acting so immature that it was the kids who came along and were, did the more mature thing.
Well, but why are the girls getting along with these? Why would the Lumpkins do that? The girls, I understand, would try to make amends, but the Lumpkins doesn't make sense to me. And then also that wasn't even the thing. I think that's like nonsensical, but whatever. The thing that gets me is the professor. Like, just through the whole episode, he's just like it's not even that he wants a peaceful resolution. It's just that he's like comatose. Like, I very much, I do appreciate, I think he is a very good dad in this episode, mostly. And I think his like tranquility is admirable, but he's just like so like he doesn't even get upset. It's not that he doesn't want to fight. He just doesn't even really seem that bothered, or he's bothered, but he's not like upset. And then the one thing happens that admittedly is a big thing, and he just immediately snaps. There's no transition. It just kind of felt forced.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the whole episode to me is like the story. The problem with the story is that it doesn't change or escalate. It is literally just vignette 1. The Lumpkins kids do something that annoys the Powerpuff Girls. The professor tells them, no, you can't fight. Vignette 2, the Lumpkins kids do another thing that annoys the Powerpuff Girls. The professor tells them, no, you can't fight. They do that about 5 times. It doesn't escalate. Like, maybe the things get worse technically, but it's not like anything changes about the situation. The professor says almost the exact same thing every time.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really like a story. That's just a series of vignettes of the same like mini thing happening.
You're right. The tension doesn't build, or the conflict doesn't escalate.
Right.
It's just kind of a very sudden thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's what would make the ending make a little more sense if it was like the professor, as it continued, the professor was like still trying to keep his cool and put on a good example for the girls. That way you could like kind of see his frustration and make it feel a little more justified when he does snap, because like, yeah, it's understandable. He planted that tree when he was like a really young kid, and Fuzzy literally cuts the whole thing down just for like a toothpick, which I did like that joke, but, and he just kind of like loses it there. I think it would work a lot better that way, but, I also,
to have him be upset but still try to stick to his gut. Maybe he says something early in the episode to the girls about not fighting, and so then he feels like he has to stick to those words, or maybe he like wants to believe in that, but then we see him like kicking a tree afterwards when the girls aren't looking. Like, seeing him get upset even though he knows better than to act on it, and that building would make that a lot more justifiable.
Yeah, because like he's trying to set a good example for his girls, and he also doesn't want to like look like a hypocrite or anything.
Right.
So like he's like set the rules, he's got to follow them. And I think that would also play into, because I agree that the ending kind of just comes out of nowhere with the girls and the Lumpkins suddenly being like best friends. Yeah, like I think it would work better if there was a moment where both sides witnessed like the adults fighting and it's like, wow, were we really like that? Like with each other, with like not liking the way we're acting. And I feel like it's like, oh, maybe we should just try and get along and work things out. I think that would make the ending make more sense, and it would be a better resolution, because it's like, oh, maybe we were being a little ridiculous. Let's kind of like just try to get along,
Back on the story structure, it's like, it's minor inconveniences that happen that are just kind of annoying, like them throwing rocks at their camper or blowing up the landscape that they're trying to paint with dynamite. But the thing with the tree is that actually has like an emotional connection with the professor, though it probably could have been explained a little bit better. It's like, that's one thing that actually like affects him and is meaningful to him, whereas it's kind of implied that he has a little bit of camping experience and that he's trying to remain not as cognizant about the because he's clearly aware of what the Lumpkins are doing. He's just trying to not be cognizant of it, or appear like he's not cognizant of it.
Right. Well, I mean, the other thing too is I found it kind of like, why did the girls abandon him right then and there? Even if they didn't want to like be a participant in the fighting, they could have at least maybe helped like get him out of there. Like they're seen, they're there when they start fighting. Like they are there.
They are.
I mean, this is a recurring theme with both of these episodes where the girls could maybe do a little more with their powers, but they just would rather watch the professor.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like if they had that moment where it was like a cutaway and they like the Lumpkins and the girls just look at each other and are like, "Oh, are we really this ridiculous?" That if that was just sliced in there really quick, I think it would have saved that.
Did we bring up that this episode was written by Thorup Van Orman,
I wanted to mention that. Yes, it was. Yep.
the creator of Flapjack?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I know from watching some like old Flapjack DVD featurettes that he does have a lot of experience in the outdoors, so it is cool that he got the opportunity to write this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I didn't actually get to say what I thought was redeeming about it, because I don't think the structure is necessarily the worst, because it's funny. It's not the most funny episode of the Powerpuff Girls, but like there are some really solid jokes in here, and I feel like this kind of repetitive vignette format works if you tell good jokes. And like the Bob Ross reference with the shrub being like the professor's afro, the porta potty and how it like just explodes and like the girls look horrified and the professor covers their eyes. Like there's it's weird because it's like each vignette just like builds to one funny joke. It's so, I don't know, it's such a weird structure. But I feel like the episode is funny enough that I could say it's an enjoyable episode.
Agreed.
Like how upset the girls get after the fuzzies try to shoot the bird. Like
I love the part where the possum shows up and they're like, "Let's eat him." And Bubbles is like, "You want to eat that?" It's so good. Oh man.
A
Yeah.
lot of the characteristics demonstrated by Fuzzy Lumpkins and his nephews reminded me very much of my own family. Because they kind of do that thing, like they blast country music, and I don't know, they have a lot of those isms. So I mean it
what
just a lot of those things, like they very much like making a lot of ruckus, and it reminded me of my family very much because they act similar. Throwing some shade.
Shadow, is this before or after the professor marries Fuzzy?
I'm pretty sure this is after, yeah.
Okay, interesting. Because that might add a new context to the episode.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the professor asked Fuzzy to come out to try to reconcile things for the kids. Oh man. Fuzzy's nephews as well, I felt like they're memorable. I feel like they could have done more with them, but they're cute. Like I like their designs. They have cute voices. They don't seem, and yeah, I mean they seem like a product of Fuzzy and Fuzzy's weird family more than
their introductions
like
were pretty funny.
Malicious.
Yep.
Yeah. What else? And yeah, you know what? I mean, ending aside, the professor is a very, very admirable role model here. Very likable in his plight. Although it is like, it's always frustrating, and I always say it. It's like, and like one of the reasons I don't like The Dark Knight Rises is just that superhero stories where characters are trying to persuade them not to be superheroes are always kind of intrinsically annoying, because part of what you like about the character is their continuing adventures. Like it's like the characters are arguing that they shouldn't be going on adventures anymore, and so the professor telling them not to fight crime, which ultimately, if they're hunting endangered birds, if they're destroying property, that is crime. That's not annoying the Powerpuff Girls. That is destroying a park, which is I think taken pretty seriously. And so there's kind of that level of frustration with it, but you can see the professor's coming from a good-natured place. So he is very admirable here up until he becomes like a 6-year-old.
Absolutely.
I love that ending part though, where Fuzzy makes the comment and he just slowly turns his head.
And then Fuzzy just jabs him in the eye. And then the narrator's like, the day was saved, not thanks to the professor. And he's like, my eye. Oh, man. Oh, I don't know why the reboot decided to scrap those the day saved gags, because those are like really funny stingers on a lot of episodes. So that's kind of where I fall on it, is that it's structurally, it could use a bit of work. The ending doesn't really work as is, but it's funny. It's a decently funny 11 minutes, and it doesn't suffer from that slowness problem that a lot of those later Powerpuff Girls episodes have. It's weird because a lot, like, the animation is still kind of jilted. Like all the characters will walk at the same time and then immediately stop. Like, I don't know, it it still kind of has a little bit of that jankiness, but it's not slow. At least it feels like all of the slowness was, or whatever slowness there was kind of like intentional timing on a joke, like right before the fuzzies do something, which that's a funny statement.
I do want to say though that compared to some of the also the later episodes of the Powerpuff Girls, I do like the art in this episode and a lot of the hand painted backgrounds of the trees and just the scenery of the location.
Happy little trees.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I never thought I'd see a Bob Ross reference in Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
It's just I don't know. There's a tranquil beauty in it, and it's fitting because because of the professor's nature in the episode. All right, you guys ready to move on to Clawdad?
No.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so Clawdad is an episode where the professor takes the girls out camping, and the professor thinks that he's a super manly outdoors camper man, and him and Blossom go into the wilderness, and lol, he's not. He doesn't know what he's doing. And Blossom doesn't help him either. She's just kind of there. And then the main story is that Buttercup and Bubbles are hunting this elusive sea creature, the Clawdad. And then Morbuck shows up because this episode didn't have enough going on in it already. And then, I don't know, they fight over the Clawdad and... Okay.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, and then, yeah.
You guys ever see the episode Clams from SpongeBob?
Yeah, I have.
Now, I mean, that episode is literally a parody of something, so I'm not trying to say that invented this concept, but I just feel like, man, was this... I don't know. This is just like wasted potential.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is definitely not the worst episode of the reboot. It was not the hardest thing to get through. The professor and Blossom's side plot was completely useless. That'll be fun to compare to the first episode. But Bubbles and Buttercup's plight also seemed like. Did it seem kind of like? I don't know. Like they catch the Clawdad just by complete chance. Like they just randomly, it's on the hook. They don't really do it. They don't bait it any special way. But Buttercup doesn't do anything other than monologue about how great a fisherman she is.
And he's built up to be this thing that the professor tried to catch his entire childhood, and like this super like mysterious and mystical creature.
It's established that like countless people go to this lake every year trying to catch it. Well, and it's like it's built up to be this huge elusive myth thing, and then it just like happens by accident.
Well, G Shadow, like, is there anything that could maybe separate the Powerpuff Girls from ordinary people trying to catch this thing? Maybe if they had some kind of, I don't know, powers to use to catch it. Because
that would make perfect sense, you know?
Another thing these two episodes have in common is that the girls don't use their powers. Now, technically in Clawdad, the girls like speed walk on the boat to push each other, and they also fly like a tiny bit at the end, but mostly they're walking in this one. And I think they fly in the other episode, but I don't think they exhibit any other powers in the other episode. But yeah, no, like that's a way that you could make the characters be more proactive. Like, okay, so they have X-ray vision. They can see through the water and look for the Clawdad. Maybe they could just, hold their breath and swim underwater, or maybe they don't have to breathe. You can make whatever power up for the Powerpuff Girls you want, really.
Yeah.
Maybe they use their Green Lantern powers to bubble themselves like they're Steven and Connie. You know what I mean? Like they could have had, and that would have been a justification as to why people couldn't catch this thing before, but the Powerpuff Girls can. It would have been something more for them to do other than argue on the boat. Like I literally facepalmed when Bubbles was like, "Can we go back to shore now?" It's like, dude, you can fly. Like you can literally see the cabin.
Like,
it's
just
right
get
there.
Up and,
what is wrong with you?
Hover over.
Like,
yeah. The show in general just forgets that the girls are superheroes 90% of the time. And this episode is no exception.
Like it's like at least the girls have justification. They're specifically told not to use their powers the first episode.
Because that's the whole point. They're on vacation. They're supposed to be relaxing, resting, just taking it easy. Here, they're just, they're there. And I mean, the professor could have done a similar thing, but he doesn't. He's just like, yeah, we're going to go camping and it'll be fun. And then it's built up that he has been there plenty of times as a child, but then he just has no idea what he's doing because he's a dopey idiot dad, and all of his good characterization is completely gone.
Something funny. This is a little bit into comparison territory, but we can start heading there.
Okay.
Professor in the first series is the kind of guy that would go camping in a tie, and then, which I found funny. This is not a joke, but I just kind of found it, chuckled to myself. But then I realized in Clawdad, when they dress him up in this camper gear. Now, granted, the professor looks a little different. He's got the obnoxious rounded fat boy chin.
Yep.
I don't know if he's supposed to look fat, but he looks a little fat in the face. The professor doesn't really look that recognizable without the suit, like without the lab coat or whatever that's supposed to be. Really, that's why they didn't do that in the first series, because if they put him in camping gear, he wouldn't necessarily look as recognizable, because he doesn't here. Like his character design, I don't like his character design in the reboot, but even still, even if you take his original design and you put a hat on him, you put camping gear on him, he doesn't look anything like the professor anymore. You put the girls in other clothes and they still look like the girls because of the bug-eyed freakiness, but you know what I'm saying? Like, not that it's a small nitpick,
I get you.
but
I get you. It's kind of like his wardrobe is what what his whole like eye-catching appeal is.
Right.
It's like you look at him and you see him in the science suit and you're like, "Yep, that's the professor."
Right. It's not even like he has a particularly iconic hairstyle, even, which most characters
No.
do. So yeah, I just kind of found that interesting comparison.
Yeah. Right.
Like, so yeah, so moving into comparisons, we get to talk about Clawdad a little. Like, Fuzzy and his nephews being there in the first episode, that's the whole plot. But Princess shows up in Clawdad, and I don't really know why. Why is she there? Why could the whole story not have been about them camping or about them looking for the Clawdad? Like, why do you need an antagonist in an episode like that?
Easy conflict.
Well, no, but it doesn't even.
Yeah, but like the conflict. See, you'd think that, but the conflict could easily just be them trying to find the Clawdad, and it's like
that's what makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like when they finally do it, the whole like
they fight over
high action climax is Bubbles and Buttercup fighting to get there first. Princess doesn't even need to be there. It can just be a chase between the two sisters. One wants to catch him and get all the fame, and the other one wants to protect him, you know?
Right.
Like that could be it.
You just had one of the protagonists become the villain. I mean, comparing the Powerpuff Girls 2016 to like season 3 SpongeBob is not a fair comparison. But yeah, no, and I found Princess's crew to be more memorable than Princess herself.
Let's reapply our sunscreen for fun screen.
Yes. You see, like the thing is with the Cash Money crew, as they're so called, I feel like there's no. I feel like they were intentionally written to be cringy, for comedic effect, but they didn't. But it wasn't funny. It was just cringy.
No. Yeah. See, that's the thing. I feel like they are intentionally. I agree. I've always felt like they were intentionally made to be like cringy, but you have to do cringe humor right, and just saying cringy stuff isn't enough to make it funny.
It doesn't work when your show is already cringy.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. It's like it's trying to be a commentary on like modern lingo and stuff, but at the same time the show uses modern lingo completely straight.
Yep.
So it's like there's this contradiction where it just doesn't it seems like, you know, it doesn't line up and it doesn't make sense. Not to mention the execution wasn't very good.
Yeah. In general, this episode felt like it had way too much happening. Like not like a lot of things happen in the story, but just like way too many elements. Like, so you have Bubbles, or you have Blossom and the Professor, who take up a very small amount of screen time. I don't like their story, and we'll talk about that. But you know, at least that's straightforward. But with Buttercup and Bubbles, you have them fighting over the Clawdad, and then they catch the Clawdad, and then Princess shows up ahead of time, and then Princess's ship turns into a mech, and then the three of them are fighting over it, and then they have to have an ending where they like reconcile. Like, it feels like why is there a robot mech? Now I agree with your review that robot, like how abruptly it transforms into a giant robot, and Bubbles being there is like the funniest thing in the episode.
Yeah.
But even still, there's not really. It didn't need to be like. I mean, but Princess doesn't need to be there. Also, I don't like Princess's new voice.
No Princess.
No disrespect to her voice actress, but after having just saw a Princess episode from the original, what makes her so great is how shrill and like in your face she is. And she just kind of sounds like a normal girl in this, and that's not interesting.
No, I completely agree with you there. I prefer her old voice as well. Yeah, no, like that's one of the biggest points I wanted to make about comparing the episodes is the first episode is just one story.
Yep.
That's all it is. And this one is like it's one story, but it's got how many parts?
It's not. It's two stories if you consider the Professor and Blossom.
I guess it's two stories, but does the first story even do anything?
No, it doesn't amount to anything.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's just like filler. In a way, it's filler. When the Buttercup and Bubbles sections already have filler, so it's like so much of it just feels like it's kind of there to stall time.
Let's talk about the Professor and Blossom. So yeah,
right.
in the first episode we watched, the Professor is, until the very end, is like incredibly mature, incredibly patient with the girls. He doesn't get mad at them for wanting to use their powers. He just kind of sits them aside and is like, no, we're gonna settle this the right way. You know, that's even if it doesn't make for the best story, at least it was nice and refreshing, and you look up to the Professor. He's a cool guy. In this one, it's the comedy routine of, oh, I know what I'm doing. I don't need the guidebook. I don't need nothing. I'm a pro survivalist. And then just like, you know, he gets stung, he gets rashes, he wanders off the path and gets attacked by a bear or tiger or whatever he got attacked with.
Mountain lion and bear,
yeah. And it's just like, the thing is, if you're gonna have a character with a big ego and he thinks he's right, and even after being punished, but he's gonna get harsh punishments for it, you have to be funny. And I know that's like subjective, and I know they're trying to be, but it's just like, you have to be funny. If you have an egocentric character and he's not funny, he's just annoying. That's it. I mean, I'll take mature professor that turns into 6-year-old professor at the last minute over just complete bumbling moron with no redeemable characteristics in this episode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, I'm completely with you.
And you know, why didn't Blossom? Okay, first of all, why does staying on the path matter if Blossom can fly? Why does even getting attacked by a bear matter? Why is Blossom like, uh-oh? It's like, dude, like, really, you can't take a bear? Like, what kind of superhero are you?
Yeah, that's a question that I ask almost every episode. is why is this happening when they can do X?
Yeah, like,
because it's like the show constantly, it feels like the show feels like it was never intended to be Powerpuff Girls. It feels like it was intended to be like Clarence 2 or something. And that's not an insult to Clarence. Clarence is a perfectly fine show, but I'm just talking about in its premises and like what it's, at least, you know, most of the time, what it's like, the stories it's telling. This feels like it could have been, you know, a Clarence episode or a Craig of the Creek episode even, where it's like, hey, they just go out to the backyard pond and they try to catch the croc. Like, that could totally work in those shows. It doesn't really feel like it's a Powerpuff Girls episode, you know?
Right, well, because there's no power. There's no
power.
I don't know how much puffing there was, but there was no power.
I am almost convinced that the girls walk more than they fly.
Oh my god,
show.
They do in this episode, and I don't like the girls walking. It's not
like I've been tempted to go back and like time how much they spend flying versus walking, but that would require me to watch the whole series over, and I'm not doing that.
The girls have probably spent more time walking than time exists in the original series. Maybe depending on episodes.
Seriously.
But no, yeah, that's nothing about this is the Powerpuff Girls. That's honestly, I mean, even for the reboot has episodes that have monsters and villains and other stuff, and like, okay, Princess is a villain, but nothing she does in this episode is villainous versus just like a rival character.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, if this was Clarence or whatever, then the bully character would come out on his rinky little boat and be like, I'm gonna catch him first. And it's like, well, you know, why is Princess here? Princess is not a villain in this. She's just there. She's just a slight antagonist, kind of. I feel like having to move your home to the woods is less expensive and extravagant than having a second rich person home in the woods already. So writers, that wasn't a good joke, and you make Princess look cheaper. So I mean, it's impressive, I guess, but like
there was a lot of bad comedy in this episode. Like
Oh, you
the
don't
first
say.
cutaway joke where where they point to that guy and he goes, "I'm not a
Oh.
fisherman. I just run the general store." What was the punchline? That everybody looks like a fisherman?
he's a
What's
guy
funny
carrying.
about that?
Dude,
LOL, so random.
and then that gets a call back later.
Yeah.
Speaking of LOL, so random. Shadow, I know you're a big fan. Faces, let's talk about them. We all make them. Oh god,
Dude, this, like, up to this point, at least, like, if you're watching the show in order, this episode has the most over-exaggerated faces of them all.
hang on. I feel like over exaggerated is the wrong term because we're not talking about SpongeBob like close up faces that are disturbing or not. They're impressive, at least, you know, like they're detailed, they're interesting, right? There's a reason why so many people use that SpongeBob whatever happened to SpongeBob face in their thumbnail because it's eye catching.
Yeah.
The way they
Does
do
this look unsure to you?
the way they do faces on this show is not to give them more detail. It's in fact to lessen the detail. Where the Powerpuff Girls, I mean, yes, their faces are, you know, they have a decent amount of detail. Their eyes are like 4 different circles. That's more circles than I have for my eyes. But no, like I feel like it's not impressive to look at. And yes, okay, I will say it is funny once to see Bubbles' face, like her eyes to just become tiny little dots that she looks like an Adventure Time character. You know, okay, sure, you can get a cheap laugh out of me once in the series when you do that. But in this episode alone, they do that so many times. There's one where her teeth and like her lip just like flashes on and off, like it's supposed to look impressive or like comedic, but it literally just looks like poor animation. It looks like an animation mistake in the original show. That's like the intentional comedy here looks like an animation mistake from a 90s show.
I'm gonna put it this way. I am a terrible drawer, and I could draw these faces.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like literally, like, it looks like anyone, like even like an inexperienced like elementary schooler would have no trouble drawing these faces.
Yeah. And it
becomes unimpressive.
Well, right. Here's the thing. It's like, at least if I don't find an overly detailed face funny, at least I'm impressed with the artistry of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an under detailed face like this is just it's just okay, well, you didn't make me laugh and the character just looks stupid. Like, I'll just say it. Honestly, they do.
Yeah.
The girls look stupid in this episode. At times.
Agreed.
It'll happen
and
within
it's not
such a sudden period too when they're on that boat.
God, they don't stop with it. Yeah. Ugh.
It's like, instead of animating Buttercup and Bubbles flying around and punching each other, you know, and knocking each other back, no, let's just have Buttercup pull her hair and make funny faces. That's what
Well,
we
they're
get.
recording
In
it
the
on a
original-
camera.
Yeah. In the original, we would have gotten the two of them bashing each other into the water and into trees and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But
Or racing. Like,
Or
high speed
racing.
around. Yeah, I mean, it's like the only thing they can do is just show the streaks as like the super fast, like, because I was paying attention, like, have they used their powers yet in this episode? And I believe the first time, they may have at the very beginning, but I believe the first time is when they Clawdad is on the hook and Buttercup rushes over, and like the only thing there is just there's a streak of light behind her and she appears in the place. Like, that's
I don't even count the flying, because the flying
it's not even flying. It's just movement. It's on the ground.
It's dashing.
Like,
yeah.
Like, it's
I don't really count that, because, well, I mean, like, yes, obviously it's a power, so I shouldn't say it doesn't count, but like in the context of like using it for more than just moving somewhere. Like, it's not like she's trying to, again, race. I mean, there's urgency trying to get it, but it's not like the fishing rod was going anywhere.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we were to exclude the girls flying from their powers that they use,
They didn't use
and
a
how
single
frequent-
power this episode.
Exactly. Like, flight notwithstanding, nothing. No eye beams, no ice breath.
And remember, there's a
Nothing.
giant mech in this episode, so I don't know. And like
it's not the first giant mech Princess has used either. The first time she used a giant golden mech, the girls didn't use their powers to beat it either. They had to have someone else, the debutantes, the roller skating
Yeah,
group,
I know that.
had to come in and save them. Yeah.
You know, and remember, and I still stand by this, despite everything we've said. I still don't think this is anywhere near the worst of the Powerpuff Girls reboot.
No, I don't think it is either. I don't think it's anywhere near the worst.
And it's the Powerpuff Girls reboot it's frustrating because it's not even it's awful in the sense that it's painfully mediocre. It's not even a show like Out of Jimmy's Head that I feel like I can really like roast or like, you know, what it's just like everything they do is just a worse version of the original show or a worse version of, you know, Clams or like any other reference that you can pull out. That's what like every episode of this show feels like. It's just, even when they're doing things right, it's just not good enough. It's just such a weak vision behind everything happening, and it's just so unfortunate that it's more unfortunate. It's more disappointing than it is like outright infuriating. But it's just a pattern of this, and it's just I still don't know how you do it, dude. Like how you watch so many of
Same
these.
here.
Thanks. Oh man, takes a lot of dedication. I'll say that much.
I believe you. So we have a viewer comment from TuneJ723. I really did not care about Buttercup and Bubbles trying to find the Clawdad. I'd rather have the A plot and the B plot switch to give more time to Blossom. I think he means Blossom. And the professor hiking and less time with Buttercup and Bubbles. It felt like their story had too much padding in it. Well, I think they could have added more to Blossom and Professor's plot to keep it entertaining. And still keep it entertaining. I don't even know how I feel about this. I feel like I don't want to see more of the professor stumbling around in the woods, but I feel like if they gave it more time, maybe there could have actually been something to that story.
I'll put it this way. I do agree that there are moments of padding with Buttercup and Bubbles. However, the professor in the reboot is my least favorite character in the entire reboot. And yes, I dislike him more than I dislike Jared. I dislike him more than I dislike Donnie.
I
believe
you. I believe you on that.
I seriously cannot stand the professor. And it's mostly because of what he was in the original. And like some people have told me, well, it's like it's not fair to like go off of what the original did if this is trying to be something else.
It's fair.
But like the reboot's not entirely trying to be something else.
You're also making a comparison, even if they're not direct comparisons, which they are, by the way, direct comparisons.
Yeah,
but
they are.
Even if it's not, it's still comparable.
Yeah. And it's just like what I don't want this professor. I don't want to see anything of this professor. I can never ever find myself enjoying a moment where this guy is on screen. Like, I don't think any of his jokes. He is supposed to be like, of the four, he is the comic relief character. That's what the reboot is going for. They want to make him the idiot dad that's supposed to be the one you laugh at. I haven't laughed once at this guy, as far as I'm aware.
Well, wait. I got one. The first episode of the Bliss Saga with his pen. Oh, that was the only time I actually enjoyed him.
See, you know, I can't even remember what that joke was.
He had like a pen that like shot lasers, and he was like attacking people in the movie theater without realizing it. He also had another funny joke later. He was good in the first episode of the Bliss stuff.
He was good, but I don't think I...
All right, maybe you didn't laugh. I'm just saying. Just saying.
I take it back.
I gotta call you.
You're right. No, you were right. It was a different joke. It was the popcorn joke.
Right.
I take it back. All right. Very, 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 very rarely do I laugh at a joke of his. I'll clarify that. Give it a little asterisk.
There you go.
But yeah, no, I think the professor in the first episode is like so much better of a character and much, much, much better of an outdoorsman too.
Yeah.
Because it's like in both episodes, the professor is the one who takes the girls camping. And in the first episode, he teaches them about nature. He teaches them about camping. He like the entire purpose of him taking them on vacation was so that he could spend quality time. In this one, in the reboot, well, he just lets Buttercup and Bubbles do their own thing. He doesn't even spend time with them. Like he does nothing with them. He's just like, yeah, we're here at my family cabin. All right, you two can go do your own thing. I'm gonna go in the woods and eat berries or something. I don't know.
Can we also talk about the this has got to be the best example of just how the reboot really underperforms with everything. The fake out. Okay. After Buttercup comes to her senses, is like, well, I know what we should do with Clawdad, and they cut to a shot of cooking what looks like something red or whatever on the campfire. Now, in your video, Shadow, you did a better job of doing this mislead than the episode does.
Thank you.
Okay, because
that's what I was trying to do.
Yes, check out Shadow's review, by the way, if you haven't yet. It's really good. It's really interesting. But yes, you did a good job at that, because the thing is, if you're not paying close attention, you don't even realize that's a joke. And I don't mean that in like a clever, like, oh, it's a joke and you don't even know it. No. I mean, they were trying to do something and they butchered it. Well, all they had to do was a dramatic music sting, or Bubbles shrieking in the distance, or some emphasis to communicate that the joke here is that you think that maybe they cooked it instead of releasing it. But they didn't do that. They just literally cut to it, and then they zoom out a second later. There's no dramatic music cue. There's nothing.
Not to mention the fact that the first sentence that a character says is Bubbles is like, "Oh, I'm so glad we released the Clawdad back into the lake," and it's like, wow, you didn't even pause or take a moment to say something subtle that could hint at it and then bait and switch us or something. No, it's it cuts right to the frying pan, zooms out, and Bubbles says that immediately. So it's you don't even have time to process that there is a joke going on here.
Yeah,
it's just completely skipped over. And that's why, when I did mine, I was like, oh my God, they killed him. I tried to, transform it into what the original intention was, because that's what the joke is supposed to be.
Right. Well, I was wondering when you did that. I'm like, well, why did you kind of abrupt it? Why didn't you include anything else? And when I watched this, it's because there's nothing else to include. All you could do if you wanted to make that joke was just show this the still image of the thing cooking, and then just being like, well, the episode ends. That's all you could say, because there's no. I mean, or you could play a shriek or something. I think a shadow shriek.
A shadow shriek.
Oh, by the time this comes out, it's not Halloween anymore. Sorry, I apologize for being dated, but But yeah, I feel like that's a really good metaphor for the reboot. It's just that they kind of tried a little bit. They have their own sense of humor, but their own sense of humor is not good. They just don't know how to sell these jokes, unfortunately. And I don't know. I don't know that I could do better, but I'm sorry, people who write for this show. You don't have your finger on the pulse of comedy.
No.
All right. But yeah, no, I mean, there's not really too much to actually compare, but they're interestingly, the girls and the professor do fish in the first episode. There's both episodes have a moment where the girls want to keep something as a pet, or they're defending an animal versus killing it. Both episodes have a villain show up while they're camping. Both episodes have the professor mentioning that he was at this location as a child doing something relevant to the plot. I mean, again, this episode, Clawdad isn't I wouldn't call it a ripoff of Roughing It Up. It just happens to have a lot of things in common. Structurally, it's quite a bit different, but maybe they would have done a better job if they had ripped it off, to be honest with you.
I don't know about that. The other episodes that have been ripped off.
Oh God,
we'll save that for another day.
Imagine just a remake of the Fuzzy episode, but it's just with Princess and her gang, and it's just so comedy brain dead.
Oh man,
swag. So Monsters, which episode did you like more?
I wonder what it could be. No. Roughing It Up was my favorite of the two, very clearly.
Shadow.
Yep, same. Roughing It Up by a landslide.
Same here. I still have some pretty severe problems with Roughing It Up, but it made me laugh. so it wins by default. I chuckled at the transforming robot gag on the other one, and that's about it. But at least
One made me laugh, the other did not.
yeah, I mean, but I got some like good hearty laughs out of roughing it up too. It weren't just like pity
Chuckles.
laughs. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now, trivia time.
Oh boy.
Now, Shadow. Okay. There is a third category this time, but it's not both. If you say both again, you get disqualified and banned from
Darn it.
banned from any future trivia.
Oh man.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. You
Darn
just
it.
lose points.
Okay.
You'll lose points. You had your warning last time.
Fine.
Okay. The options this time are, because I needed to make this a little harder for Shadow: reboot, original, or made up. Did I make up any of these descriptions? That's the real question. Is this something that would come out of Pie's mind? If you don't know the game, these are just pulled straight from the Wikipedia articles, the episode list descriptions. I'm going to read the descriptions, and you guys have to tell me reboot, original, or made up. Shadow, if you want to tell me the episode name, that would be cool. You don't get any extra points for it, but you'll probably know it anyway. All right. When the girls tell Barry he's a hero, he takes it too far. Monsters. Reboot, original, or made up?
Made up.
Shadow.
I'm gonna go with reboot.
Shadow is correct.
Who's Barry?
Barry is my favorite character. No, Barry is the larger kid with the Illuminati shirt.
So he's not in the classic, I take it?
No, he's not. That's why I immediately went to reboot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got monsters at least. The episode's called Bucket Boy.
Is that season 3?
Yes.
I thought so.
All right. After the Powerpuff Girls lose their baseball in Mojo Jojo's window, it seems to offer the evil villain the perfect opportunity to destroy the pesky superheroes. Unfortunately, he gets more than he bargains for when the girls treat it like a visit to his house just to cause trouble over a baseball.
Original.
Yeah, original.
I
Just
remember this
another Manic
episode.
Mojo. Such a good episode.
Season 1 episode. Yes, you're both correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shadow is at 2. Monsters is at 1. Buttercup is not a fan of Bubbles' newly created digital assistant. Reboot, original, or made up? Monsters.
Reboot?
Shadow.
I'm also gonna go with reboot.
You're both correct. Gosh darn it. You know what, Shadow? I thought I could get you because that and the other reboot episodes are episodes that have not aired. So technically speaking, they could be inaccurate descriptions, but I felt like that was the only way I could maybe fool you.
Well, the one you just mentioned, isn't that Oh Daisy one? Because
Yes.
that one's been rumored to be airing for like, gosh, I don't know, months
All right, well,
upon months.
I felt-
so like I've heard of that
I
one.
felt maybe I could get one of you with digital assistant because like I mean
That's
pretty
vague.
they're probably talking about an Alexa, but it sounds like they're talking about like a PDA,
Yeah.
which
Right.
would be, original Powerpuff Girls territory timeline wise.
I mean, I will completely concede though. The Barry one, that was just me guessing reboot. So that was a 50-50 shot.
All right, so yeah, 3 in, Monsters at 2, Shadow is at 3. Princess realizes she needs 2 other girls to form her own Powerpuff trio, so she creates a scheme to steal the Powerpuff Girls' newly found friends. Original,
up.
reboot, or made up?
Yeah, that's made up.
Ah! You're both right. I'm not going to fool you, Shadow.
Unless you say something like 3 criminals decide to steal the Utonium's car. But then I know that's made up. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
After Bubbles and Buttercup mistakenly give Blossom a botched haircut, she gets made fun of by everybody in the city. When an all-seeing monster appears, Blossom now has to help her sisters stop the monster and deal with the humiliation.
This plot synopsis seems familiar. I just can't seem to remember which series it's from.
They are trying to stop the monster, so that's you.
I'm going to say reboot.
Shadow.
No, that's the original, the main event.
Yeah, man. How could you forget about
Okay,
that
no, see, I
one
recognize
of the
that
best
plot. I just couldn't
episodes.
decide.
one?
Such a good one. That's another great Professor episode too.
It is. I actually remember Blossom's haircut. despite not having seen it in a while. It's pretty iconic.
It
Oh
is.
man, oh god, there's a lot of episodes where something happens to one of the girls and the other two make fun of her for it. This happens more than you think. Like when Bubbles need glasses, or
Oh yeah.
Buttercup doesn't have a power of her own. It's like, all right. Last question. Monsters you can hope to tie, but that ain't happening. When a mysterious rain cloud plagues Townsville, Bubbles learns things aren't what they seem.
Why'd you do this one again?
Monsters, you better get it right this time.
Reboot.
You didn't last time.
Yes, it's the reboot. It's Largo.
You're both correct.
Dude, I was like, okay, is he really doing it again?
I couldn't. I tried so hard to keep a straight face. I couldn't.
Shadow with
my
the perfect
goodness.
score again.
Yeah. Well, no, last time he did not, because he decided to do a very
No.
foolish thing.
Last time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
How was I supposed to know? It was 3 criminals stealing the rust bucket. That's so generic.
Both. I did better than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, you did good, Monsters. 5 out of 6.
4 out of 6.
5 out of 6. You got all of them except the main event.
No, I didn't get the first one right either.
You're right. Why am I so bad at this? Well, either way, Shadow wins 6-4. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Shadow. Yeah, you say yeah. The next time you're on, I'm gonna make you like. All right. I got something.
Just be like, all right, you have to name the episode, name the writers, name the premiere date, name the ratings, name everything.
Yeah.
What's the episode number production code?
How did Craig McCracken personally feel working on this episode? Was he having a good day?
Name this Jared episode.
Oh, how many lines does Jared have in this episode? Oh, goodness. All right. Well, once again, Shadow has disturbingly good trivia skills. Next time, I will 100% fool you more than this time, no matter how hard I have to make the trivia quiz, or how much of an advantage I have to give Monsters. We'll get you.
I'm sure. I'm waiting. I'm excited for this challenge.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Shadow. I'm sure you'll be on again pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to do these with you.
All right. Sounds good. With that, PIEGUYRULZ out.
Bye.
And so, once again, the day is saved thanks to PIEGUYRULZ, Shadow Streak, and that large green guy.